Maran writes on page 272, Seif Daled. Shafach mayim al yado achad. If you pour water on one of your hands, v'shifshefa b'chaverta. What is shifshuf?
Rub your hands.
And you rub it in your other hand. Lo alta lo netila afilu shafach b'charona al shtei yadav. It doesn't count for nitlat yadayim, even though you then pour water on both of your hands properly, it doesn't count for nitlat yadayim. So case one, you pour water on your right hand. Yeah. Your left hand is dry. You then rub them together. Oops, weren't supposed to do that. So you go and wash again a second time. The proper amount of water on both your hands. Chachamim say it doesn't work.
Why not?
Because they're making problems for you. How do you make it work? Uchshifshefa nitmet chaverta mimena. Because when you rubbed your left hand with your right hand, the left hand, chaverta, the friend of your right hand, became tameh. And second waters only purify the water which has already washed your hand.
Oh.
And not the water that comes from your other hand. And therefore, if you pour water on one of your hands from a cup, and you rub it in your other hand, you must dry your hands. And go back to wash them properly.
So the hand that you rub the water on, that becomes tameh.
As does the other hand.
They both do. Oh.
So basically, don't just wash right away, dry and then wash. Lefichach, and therefore, hanotel yadav, someone who washes his hands, tzarich shishpoch lo acher alehen. Someone else should pour the water on your hands.
We used to always do that at Pesach at our house.
That's right. Ve'im en lo acher, and if there is no one else, but that's a standard tradition in Sephardic homes, that someone else washes your hand. I mean, not anymore, but it used to be. Yechos hakli barashei etzbeotav, you should hold the cup with the tips of your fingers. V'shpoch al shtei yadav ke'echad, and you should pour the water on your hands together. Remember we said it's some kind of maneuvering? You hold it with the tips of your fingers and you pour on your hands. Or another way, but whatever way you
tilt
could.
it a little bit, yeah.
Why is it preferable to do them both at the same time if you've dried your
That's
hands?
the ideal way to wash your hands. Throughout the Shulchan Aruch, we've been saying either you pour revi'it on both your hands at once, or one revi'it on each hand. And then he's going to say now, or yishpoch al kol achat revi'it v'achar כך yishafshefem, where you pour revi'it on each hand, and then you rub them together. Shashofech revi'it ke'echad, because if you pour revi'it at once, and tzarich mayim shneim l'taharam, you don't need any kind of second waters. Shasur revi'it bevat achat k'mo tvila she'ena tzricha shtifat shnei pamim. Because once you pour a revi'it of water at once, you don't need second hands because it's a second pouring. It's really a repetition of what we said earlier, just an elaboration. Because once you pour a revi'it of water, it's like you dipped your hands in the mikveh.
You have to be pretty adept at pouring it.
I actually have never tried it, so I don't even know how that would work.
Also, isn't there a problem, like, if you're holding onto the cup, isn't it kind of like, when you go to the mikveh, you have to go completely under? Isn't it kind of like your hands that touch the cup aren't really getting wet?
That's why I say like the little tips of your fingers.
Yeah, but then maybe those tips of your fingers are going to get wet because you're...
That's the most likely thing to touch food.
Yeah.
We need to design a new cup here.
273.
Or we need to see the original design.
Then you have to have a different kind of a lip.
You invent that cup.
Why?
Who's that?
21st century high tech.
Rafael.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's him, yeah.
He's on his phone. Nobody's sitting here yet.
Oh, nobody's. What?
Let's look on page 280. It's the continuation of the halacha. Im naga'a bahem acher. If someone else touches your hands, shelo natal yadav, who did not yet wash his hands, be'odam lachot min hamayim, while they are still moist from water, tzarich lenagvam, you must dry your hands, v'lachzor v'litol, and go back and wash again. I mean, this is the same situation as if your one hand that was dry touched your wet hand.
So if your hands are completely dry, it wouldn't matter, or would it still matter?
No, it wouldn't matter.
It would not?
Water, a tuma is a little bit like electricity. It has to have the conductor to transfer. If the other guy's hands were actually dirty, that might be a problem. But just the tuma aspect only transfers.
So like you
with
wash
water.
and somebody walks in, you're like, oh, Shlomo, how you doing?
Exactly.
And
Have
then
to
now
wash.
both are messed up.
So then why, if you pour over one hand, the other hand is dry, and you go like that, you make it wet?
Because your dry tameh hand is passing tuma to your hand through water.
It's transferring it.
Okay.
Lachen, and therefore, tzarich lizaher, one has to be careful. Shofech mayim shlishiyim. When you pour the third water, shem shniim, that there are the second, levad rishonim, aside from the first. Shelo yiga yad b'chaverta shishpoch gam zeh shniya. That one hand should not touch the other hand. That's why this cup has two handles.
Mm-hmm.
The whole idea is that the right hand and the left hand shouldn't touch each other.
That's why the two hands.
That's why the two hands.
Interesting.
I don't know the history of when that was invented or why that was invented, but that's the reason for it.
I see.
Oh yeah. There's one handle.
So then-
you would actually, or you would put your tuma from the wet hand onto the handle, even if you don't
Oh,
touch
so I
fingers.
don't want to go to the handles yet because
Yeah, okay.
there's a discussion on that. But here, if it was just one handle, you would inevitably you would have to
Touch
Transfer.
it.
touch. So there's one hand and there's another handle, and that way you don't.
Transfer. Why can't you just?
Yeah, most of the time I don't wash with a washing cup. I actually wash with a cup like this in my house. I actually wash with half a cup like this.
We won't tell
Um,
anybody.
no, so you one and then two. Yeah, you just make sure not to touch the hands.
Yeah.
But imagine teaching that halakha to everybody. I don't think if you ask most people who wash their hands if they're allowed to touch hands, ask them why are there two handles on a washing cup.
Hardly anybody knows. Yeah.
Good luck.
So,
Nice riddle.
so you dry your hand and you start from the beginning again.
Yes.
So there are degrees of Tamei Tahara, obviously, but with the Bet HaMikdash citizens.
I don't know the laws of Tumat at all. Nothing. Yeah, no, I'm on. I really am. I'm not a.
Okay.
I have some chavrutot that are kohanim that might be able to help out a little. And then he says, and therefore you should make sure that the right hand does touch the left hand touches the right hand. Or you should pour that way where you pour on both your hands. Vim natan kol yad mervi'it, and if you pour the revit on each hand, and tzarich lekol zeh, you don't need any of this at all, because it doesn't make a difference. Once you pour revit on one hand, revit on the other hand,
Even without drying.
that's right.
Well, if you did it right in the first place, where your hands are still damp, and someone touches your hand who has not washed yet, then you're still in trouble.
Yeah.
So you said if you use a review on each hand, then you don't have a problem. But before, we read that if someone touches your hand after you've washed them, obviously with not enough water, and your hands are still damp, then you have to go back and do it again. So what does it mean that if you've used a review on each hand, then you're okay?
It's probably if you used a revit on each hand, you can touch the same, like, this hand is, actually that's a good,
Okay, when he says that you don't need all this, you're right. Another person whose hands are tameh would make his hands tameh even if he washed with a gallon of water.
Okay.
What it means you don't need all this is you don't need the second and the third, and you don't need all of that step. Like he's repeating what he said before, that if you wash with a revi'it of water, you don't need to wash any more than just once.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what he means.
Thank
That's
you.
a good question.
But even so, if someone touches you, if you dry your hands, no, because it's still wet.
If your hands are
No,
down.
dry is good. Not
But
They're
Yeah.
still saying all wet. Yeah.
But your hands are tahara after you wash with a revi'it, even if you don't dry.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah,
but someone with a dry hand
But
touches
the
you,
wet hands will be a
Yeah, they're
conductive.
conductive. Yeah.
see, but a dry hands won't.
So in general, I'm not saying this in any negative way. To me, the language of Maran has always been a little too cryptic, as opposed to, for example, the Rambam. I always felt that the Rambam laid out his book of Halakha very clearly, overly clearly, meaning it's so easy to understand. With Maran, you have to understand, Maran is doing something interesting. Maran is writing, this is not his book. Maran is abridging a book that he wrote already. And so he's like pulling language that he used previously. He's also oftentimes quoting someone else. He's borrowing language from another author, which means that normally it's not his language. Oftentimes I will say something like the sentence structures, because if you understood the origins of this sentence, you would understand half it was from the Rambam, the other half was from somewhere else. And I've always felt that the Rambam's writings were simply explained clearer. It's just not, I'm not Chazon saying anything about Maran, but this book, Shulchan Aruch happens to be a little more cryptic than other books of Halakha. Okay. Let's look at some of the notes. Maran was speaking about touching one hand with the other hand. Let's look on page 273 under the two lines. Im shavach mayim nitila rishona, if you pour water for the first hand washing, meaning less than the revi'it of water. Al yado echad, on one hand. ולאחר מכן, afterwards, שפשף את אותה יד שנטל בידו השנייה. שעדיין לא נטל. And you touch, you rub the unwashed hand of the washed hand. לא נטל נטילה, the נטילה doesn't count for you. מפני שהמים של היד שנטל בידיהם. Because the water that's on your right hand that you washed are already טמא. וכשנהגו מים אלו בידו השנייה, טימאו אותם. When the water touched the second hand, they became טמא. והחמירו החכמים בדין זה, and החכמים were strict about this halakha, ואמרו, they said שאפילו אם יחזור לאחר מכן וישפוך מים על שתי ידיו, even if you go back and you wash your hands again properly, אין זה מועיל, it doesn't work. Like we said, ואפילו ישפוך על כל יד בפני עצמה רביעית שלמה של מים, and if you pour in each hand the whole revi'it of water, it doesn't help. אין זה מועיל. מפני שאין מים שובר בפעם השנייה מטהרים את הראשונים, אלא כשהמים הראשונים טמאים, החמצת את היד עצמה שנטלה. The second water is only cleanse the tum'ah from your hand if it's the tum'ah of that hand, but not the tum'ah of another hand. And therefore, you must dry your hands, and then you have to wash them again. So if whatever reason happens, that your hands become tameh from touching either another hand or your other hand, in that time you don't wash a second time, you dry your hands and then wash a second time. Yes?
Every time we see this, we're using the word to rub your hands together. Is this being very specific with rubbing your hands together, or just
No, not necessarily. It could be touching.
any touch?
It could be touching. ואף היד שנטל אותה כבר בפעם הראשונה נטמאת מחמת שנגע ביד השנייה שעדיין לא נטלה. Page 274, and even the hand, which is washed already, becomes tameh from the other hand that he didn't wash. ונמצא לפי זה שהיד שנתנה כבר בנטילה ראשונה נטמאת מחמת שנגעה ביד. Look at the middle. V'hu hadin. You see that sentence bold on page 274. V'hu hadin b'chol hanal, and that is the halacha in all of these cases. Im lo shifshef yad echad b'chavata, even if you didn't actually rub the hands together, Owen. Ela rak nag'a yad echad shenatara b'yad shelo nata. Even if you just touches one hand that didn't get washed with another hand. I mean, it doesn't have to be rubbing. It could be touching. You just use the language that was common. וכן אם נטל שתי ידיו, and if you wash both your hands, כל אחד בשפיכה ראשונה של פחות מרבית מים. You pour them in one continuous pouring of less than a revit of water. Let's look on page 275 in the last paragraph there. Le'o hamu, it says Ted Zayin. Ted Zayin. In the last paragraph in the middle of the page. Le'o hamu le'el. You see? Mm-hmm. This last paragraph. Le'o hamu le'el. Based on what we've said above. שאסור שתיגע ידו האחת שנטלה ביד השנייה שעדיין לא נטלה. And even though, and as we've said above, that you can't touch one hand with the other hand, ראוי לו לנוטל ידיו מרביעית מים בלבד, if someone's going to wash with only a revi'it of water, it's proper, שישפוך לו איש אחר את המים על ידיו, it's proper that another person washes his hands for him. ועדיף לעשות כן ממה שיטול ידיו בעצמו, and it's better to do that than to wash your own hands. ואם אין שם מי שישפוך למים על ידיו ויאחוז את הכלי בראשי אצבעותיו וישפוך מים על שתי ידיו כאחת, and if that's a situation, then he should try to hold the cup with both of his fingertips and pour the water on both of his hands. ואם יש הרבה מים ישפוך על כל ידו בפני עצמה, if he has a lot of water, he should pour a revi'it on each hand. ואין צריך שיטול ידיו על יד אחר, and you don't need someone else to wash your hands. ולאחר מכן לנחוש אם ייגעו ידו זו בזו מפני שכבר טהורות הן. And then once you wash your hands on your own, it doesn't make a difference if both those hands touch each other. Because they're both tahor, yes. Now we may begin to understand to you why the halachot we studied in the past of who can pour water in your hands. A man, a woman, a Jew, a non-Jewish person, a person who's washed their hands already, a person who didn't wash their hands already. Because that was a common practice, and even recommended by some poskim that someone else washes your hands for you.
That was a common practice.
Yeah, it's still
Under Sephardic.
in many Sephardic homes until today's generation. I mean, today's generation had stopped already. That was the minhag, that other people wash your hands for you.
Mm-hmm.
Baruch, what do they do by your in-laws' house? By Seder, did anybody go around washing hands?
No, I don't think
No,
so.
Okay.
Well, I think they tried for the Seder, but
It doesn't always work. Depends on the man. And you didn't do it at home this year, right?
Correct.
So that by me, we always have one of us.
Go around, right?
But so my dad did even in Ashkenazi.
Really?
Yeah. But maybe that was from, he had a tradition of coming from Cordoba back in the way, through,
That's interesting.
from Cordoba to Czechoslovakia, so maybe they transferred that over to that
Has
part
anyone
of
ever
Europe.
seen an Ashkenazi Seder where they wash hands, aside from that? Because that's interesting. And that's actually, if that was prevalent also. What?
Just before bread, you mean, not you mean for matzah.
Yeah, for bread.
It's
Not usually.
Talking about matzah, I saw a picture from Yerushalayim, it's Ramadan. So they had a Ramadan break the feast, break the fast at the end of the day. And it was like all this beautiful Arabic food with cracker matzahs on the table because they couldn't buy bread, so they got like Manischewitz matzahs. Like this is Ramadan 2019. This is Jewish cracker matzahs and the Ramadan break the fast.
oh my gosh! I thought that's where the Jews
I got a kick
went.
out of the picture.
I thought that's where the Jews went to get bread during Pesach.
Yeah, they said, who says Jews and Arabs don't get along in Israel? On Pesach, we go to their stores to buy chametz. On Ramadan, they come to our stores to eat during the day. Of course, we always cover each other's days. I didn't make out 1 second. I was so impressed with this
Just see
picture.
the me and the Kanedalach during the break the fast.
This is from a real person's Ramadan table. Look. You see all the matzahs on there? This is
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah,
Oh, yes.
One second.
Oh, yep.
You haven't told it up close.
That's classic.
So you got all the grape leaves and the borekas and
And the
the
kabrats.
Syrian
and the-
chickens and then matzahs.
Wouldn't you see a few sneaking out at lunchtime too to the shawarma stores?
That's what I said. We always have each other's backs.
It's like, how many days are 40 days?
40 days.
So you fast all day from food and drink?
I don't know all the details. I didn't.
And then at nighttime you stuff yourself for
But I'm
40
pretty
days?
sure it's food and drink, and then every night they eat, and
Yeah.
then they start the fast.
I think it's
over
12
again.
hours.
Boy.
Yeah, it's like sundown to sunrise.
That's-
Sun.
Yeah.
Instant liver
That's for sure the reason why when Muhammad went to Medina to convert the Jews, they didn't accept the religion. Like, we fast like 6 times a year. We go crazy that we have to fast for 6 days. Imagine 40 days in a row. There's no way in the world you get us to stay away from food for them. Somebody should have spoken with someone in marketing before.
Tough sell.
All right, so it says.
1276.
That's right.
But these details of these halachot are so not important for us right now. Okay, page 280. If after you see the middle page, if after you wash your hands properly, while they're still moist from water, before you dry them, someone else touched the hands, he did not wash his hands. The water in your hands become tameh, because the other person is touching. וצריך לנגב ידיו ולחזור ולטול שנית. You have to dry your hands and go wash a second time. So on page 281, in the middle of the page. ואפילו נגעה בידיו שהן נחות, and even if someone touched your moist hands, and that person was a tinok ben yomo, a baby who was born yesterday, meaning even a baby. צריך לנגב ידיו, you must dry your hands, ולחזור וליטול, and you must wash them again. ונכון להחמיר בזה גם כשנגע גוי בידיו שהן נחות, and that's proper to do even if someone non-Jewish touches your hands. Meaning any person who touches your hands. Don't start getting into are their hands clean, are their hands dirty? Like a baby, what's dirty with his hands? Is it Jewish, non-Jewish? Does he get involved in kedusha and tuma and tala or not? Meaning, when someone else touches your hands, after you wash your hands are still wet, you go back and wash your hands. Look here in the footnote, in Chaf Hey in the right, Chaf Hey. She's quoting as who says that you have to wash your hands when it's touched by a baby. And also in the book Chesed Alafim. Who wrote Chesed Alafim? Chesed Alafim.
Heard of it.
Chesed Alafim. Took it home. It's the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch of the Pele Yoetz, Rabbi Eliezer Papo. A lot they call him Harav HaChasid, the righteous rabbi. I'm assuming that Alafim, and his name is Rabbi Eliezer Papo. So I'm assuming that Pele Yoetz, Eliezer Papo, also Chet la'alafim. Alef is Aleph, Pele. It's all the same root. The Ben Ish Chai. The Kavachayim. So 3 Kabbalists essentially are saying, could be it's a Kabbalah thing, I'm not sure, I didn't look at the halachot inside, that you wash even when a baby touches your hands. And then Chavav, about a non-Jew touching your hands, Ayin B'shut Hitorut Shuvah, look in the book Hitorut Shuvah, that says, Shnistapek B'zed Yan Naga Yado, Hatula B'yad Shenochi. He's not convinced that if a non-Jewish person touches your hands, it becomes tameh. Aval B'shut, it could be, I didn't see inside, this is completely a guess. It could be that because Goyim they're not involved in Hilchot Tumah and Tahara, I mean, these halachot are not relevant by, only those who involve themselves in Tahara, going to the Ben Mikdash, being pure, so they also have issues of Tumah. But a non-Jewish person who doesn't, I mean, it's not part of the way they work, it's not something that would affect you either. Aval B'shut Chakal Yitzchak, but look in the book Chakal Yitzchak, Katav Lachmir B'zeh Gam B'get Go, he's strict also by a non-Jew touching hands. Vayen B'shut Revot Ephraim, and look in the book Revot Ephraim, who wrote Revot Ephraim? I gave you a shiur once about him. Rabbi Ephraim Greenblatt of Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh, he did talk about
Kehillat Aleph, he writes in the first one, Shekadav Lakel, that he was lenient about it. When Rabbi Greenblatt passed away a few years ago, maybe 2 years ago, I gave a shiur about him. My wife says, wait, how do you know Rabbi Ephraim Greenblatt? How do you know Ephraim Greenblatt? And my wife has a friend who said, her dad, he moved to Israel from Memphis, Tennessee. If you don't mind, he needs someone to walk him to Binyan for Mincha and Arvit. If you could walk him,
it.
bring him
the
back.
walker, that's right.
Please, if you have time. So my wife would volunteer. She'd go there every day. She'd walk Rabbi Greenblatt to Tefillah and back. She knew who he was. He gave her a signed copy of his book. He used to tell her stories on the way there and the way back and talk about halakha, whatever. So it was just an old man who was her friend's father. Rabbi Ephraim Greenblatt was the capital T, the rabbi in Memphis, Tennessee. He was an expert in many areas of halakha, like Gittin, for example. I believe his son still is involved in Gittin. He's been here to San Diego to do Gittin before. And Ephraim Greenblatt was either a student or a close friend of Rav Moshe Feinstein. It could be both. It could be a student that reached the level of a colleague. Probably, if you would consider Rav Moshe Feinstein, it would be like the next one in the link. Was a tremendous Chacham. He lived in Memphis, Tennessee. He transformed that city. When he got there, there were rabbis who were photocopying Gittin and filling in the blanks with it. They didn't know halakha, they didn't know anything. He came to a city in the middle of nowhere and built up a city of Torah and HaShamayim. His wife was killed, if I'm not mistaken, in a car accident, which left him devastated. He was so close to her. He simply couldn't function after that. I just the details of all the stories. It's been a while since I read these stories. At a certain point, he just couldn't handle being alone anymore, and his children wanted to bring him to Israel to come live with them. Let's understand. He's a rabbi who came to a place. He built a place. It became his name. Rabbi Ephraim Greenblatt is automatically connected to Memphis, Tennessee. If anybody is Jewish in Tennessee, it's because of Rabbi Greenblatt. His prized possession in Tennessee were his books. He had a library like nobody had a library. Manuscripts and writings and Shet Tshuvot and all kinds of books. I think he said that those books were hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of sfarim. It's like a collection library, not just a regular library. And he couldn't afford to bring those books to Israel. He didn't have enough money to his name to bring them. And nobody helped him, so he just left them behind. He donated some of them to synagogues and left most of his books behind. And he came to Israel, and he once told my wife something along the lines of how much he misses his wife, and his only nechama, the only consolation after his wife was at least he had his books. And now that he came to Israel, he didn't even have his books. And it was then he passed away a few years ago in Yerushalayim. But my wife used to walk him by. She thought he was just an old man from Memphis, Tennessee. She had no idea who he was. And you see books of halakha all over the place quote the Revot Ephraim. He was a game changer in halakha. He was one of the Ashkenazi poskei halakha of the United States, one of the big ones in the United States. He's a special person. You read stories about him, a humble person, a kind person. You can Google articles about him. Rabbi Ephraim Greenblatt. Maybe I'll post some for the classroom. An unbelievable personality. Every time I see his name, I just make a point of what a Talmid Chacham can give the world and what he can never take away from the world. It's a theme, the Ben Ish Chai. The Ben Ish Chai, we have a dozen or 24 of his books. The Ben Ish Chai wrote 180 books, most of which never made it to print because he couldn't afford to print his own books. His community didn't help. In the Ben Ish Chai's time, he was just another guy with a synagogue. They didn't even he wasn't the Ben Ish Chai. He was just Rabbi Yosef Chaim of Baghdad. Yes.
I thought he had some means to him.
He did have some means to him, but even a man of means, printing, today printing is easy. It's something so cheap. You don't realize when you
Buy a
print
laser
papers
printer
on
for
your-
$200.
Right? You
True,
can print
yeah.
all the books you want in the world. And then printing, even if you had money, you needed other people to help you print.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a thing. Even people who have money today, when they want to really print, you want to get printed by real publishers and real circles and distribution. That also costs a fortune, even today. And he left behind books. I mean, some of them molded away, some of them flooded in basements, some of them were buried in Baghdad. I told you, I showed you a manuscript a while ago. I have, Baruch Hashem, they reprinted 2 volumes of the Ben Ish Chai's commentary on Parashat Shavua. That they found them when the American troops raided one of Saddam Hussein's intelligence buildings. in
Right, they only have
2016.
only a couple parshiot, right? There's only
Well, they
like,
actually have 2 full volumes on Chumash, so that seems to be a whole set. But they did find other random bits that tells you there are.
What's he doing with Ben Ish Chai?
Well, what had happened? They used to rob the Jewish community all the time. You take a Jew, you torture him, you steal his property, his books.
What did he do with his books?
It's you don't know, a museum. The Nazis had the same obsession. They wanted to document the Jewish life after they killed all the Jews. Weird things that are. Why are Nazis collecting Sifrei Torah? Same story. It's Saddam Hussein, he had so many Jewish books. The Vatican. Why does the Vatican have all of our books? We still
Probably
print
have
editions, by the way. We still print books based on copies from the Vatican. We go there. There's a group of rabbis that go there to the libraries in the Vatican. You have to get permission. You come in. It's not like what they tell you. You have to smuggle books out. For the most part, the books in the Vatican are open access if you go through the proper channels. And they make us pay like 25 cents a page for photocopies. It's like you stole those books from us, and we're paying you to photocopy the books. It's unbelievable. You'll notice in many, especially if you look in academic Jewish works, the references are to this edition in the Vatican with a code number, so you can look it up yourself. You have like the popular libraries, like the Jewish Theological Seminary has a big library. Hasidei Chabad, Lubavitch, and Crown Heights has a tremendous library. But the Vatican, I don't know if I'm right. Maybe you know this. You could say that they have one of the biggest Jewish libraries in the world.
I know they have a huge library,
Yeah.
period,
Salt
a
Lake.
huge one.
So they massacred Jews. They took our books, and kept them. Don't forget that until not so long ago, you had members of the Vatican who knew how to read Hebrew and translate Hebrew and go through Jewish works. There was a thing. The generation of Rashi, they say that it's true. They say that he would often help young priests study Tanakh. A lot of times they bring, this is how you say it in French. This is how you say it in French. Who's he teaching to in French? The non-Jewish priests that we're studying. What kind of priest are you going to be if you don't even know how to read the Chumash in Hebrew? How can you claim to be a Catholic priest? You don't even know the origins of the book that you're teaching. It used to be a thing. I know that not everyone is into this, but the more you read about Chacham, every time you hear a name, you read a book, you hear a name of Chacham, don't go to sleep tonight until you research who that Chacham is. Today, you don't have to go to encyclopedias, you don't have to go to the library. Just put it on your phone, check out Wikipedia, read through it. Make a Chacham personal to you. That way, when you see his name next time, you know who you're talking about. You know where they're from, what generation they're from, which country did they live in, what were their main philosophies. It's so easy today to... The OU has a page of brief biographies of Chacham. A lot of websites. There are a number of there's encyclopedias, Jewish like online. You just put in a name and it pops up. For example, this week I just bought 2 books, old books of Kuf Samech was a Romanian, Hungarian, depends where you draw borders in Europe. Traveler. It was an Ashkenazi rabbi who traveled through Iraq and Yemen and Egypt and all kinds of places. Kuf Samech. And he recorded like a daily journal of all the communities he met. It's one of the best. It's 100 years old. It's an unbelievable glimpse of an Ashkenazi rabbi discovering Sephardic communities as he's traveling through the Middle East. And he took beautiful notes on every community. The plus sides, the downsides, the customs, the halachot that he heard, the speeches that he came up with. And so as I was researching this, I said, who else was traveling around? There's a famous doctor that went to Baghdad, and he wrote a critique of the Ben Ish Chai. Basically, he accused the Ben Ish Chai of not caring about his community enough. And the chief rabbi of Iraq put him in cherem. This poor is an Ashkenazi Jew, if I'm not mistaken. He had no idea in the world what is a cherem, how does it work. You know, in Europe, you ban somebody, he becomes even more famous. In Baghdad, they banned him and he couldn't walk into the door of a synagogue. And he ended up leaving until he made peace with the Ben Ish Chai. But nobody could talk about the Ben Ish Chai in Baghdad. Who are you to come here and talk about HaShamayim? Yeah, that was it's just interesting to look through who are the personalities, where do they come from, what do they play with. What was the accusation? I think he accused the Ben Ish Chai. His brothers were businessmen. And he accused them of, they took care of the family business, they helped support their brother, and they accused him of studying too much Torah. Like he was too in his books. That's like accused the Rambam, you're wasting too much time studying books. It's a silly thing, but then that was a critique they gave him. So the head rabbi said, I'm not letting this man speak in this town until he asks forgiveness from the Ben Ish Chai. It's all just an elaboration of what we read before. We're going to talk next Monday night about what Dan brought up, which is the handles of the cup holding water and the cup becoming tameh. You may have seen people like do this thing where they pick up the cup with a towel and then transfer with another towel. We're going to try not to feed the OCD beast too much, but we're gonna talk about that. We're also going to talk about what happens when you wash your hand already and then you touch not your other hand but just another part of your body that didn't get into not your face or something else.
What about people? So I've been in houses where people do the thing of holding the cup with a towel or a cloth, but then everybody does it and it gets wet after a couple
The
of
cloth.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And about this, we say in the Gemara, "Maho'ilu chachamim b'takanatam." What did the chachamim's decree help? Meaning, you came to solve one problem, you just created a different problem. And oftentimes they have this. It's the law of unintended consequences. Or it's you create one law that you think solved the problem, but really just delays the problem to somewhere else. So now the first person who uses the towel is fine, but the second or third or fourth or 10th person who uses the towel, now their hands are just as wet as the cup.
Yeah.
In fact, it might even be more wet than the cup. It retains water, unlike the handles of the cup.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see that people don't think halachot through all the way. It's like I recently heard somebody who said, if those people keep Chalav Yisrael, they have to be careful that when they go to someone's house that doesn't keep Chalav Yisrael, they should only make their dairy food in the meat oven, but not in the dairy oven. Because the meat oven is at least kosher meat that they put in that oven. But the dairy oven has not kosher dairy because it's not Chalav Yisrael. And therefore, you want to make sure that you don't put your dairy with their dairy. So I'm thinking to myself, listen, you know me, I don't believe in meat or dairy ovens in the first place. But according to you who believe in meat or dairy ovens, you're telling me that it's better to have a meat and milk mixture than to have a non-Chalav Yisrael mixture that the rest of the Jewish community considers to be kasher. But sometimes you're so busy trying to solve a problem that you end up in a worse situation than you were in before.
So can I ask, do people who keep Chalav Yisrael think that it's not kosher to eat?
So there's going to be two camps there. There's the camp that understands halakha and the camp that doesn't. Those who understand halakha are very aware. Like Rav Moshe Feinstein, when he writes about Chalav Yisrael, Rav Moshe Feinstein himself, he kept Chalav Yisrael. But he writes, V'chalila, it's forbidden for a person to say that one who doesn't keep Chalav Yisrael is not scrupulous in mitzvot observance. Meaning, that person is following halakha properly. You may want to do more than that, but you can't say about such a person. And then there's the camp that says, no, all of this is a lie, it's all this, the rabbis are being too lenient, and you have one of the rabbis who says, anybody who doesn't keep Chalav Yisrael, a snake should come and bite him. Which I've explained before, whenever the word snake, it doesn't really mean snake, it means, it's like they should be put in excommunication. Nidui cherem v'shamta is a nachash. And so those people, I was once at an event, a fundraiser where I went to volunteer, and somebody brought some food, I don't remember what it was, it wasn't Chalav Yisrael, it was kosher though. And I asked, can you pass me that? Oh, I'm sorry, I can't pass it to you. Why not? I can't pass treif food to somebody to eat. If you're Jewish, I can't give that to you to eat.
Treif.
I'm not going to get it myself, but that's such a ridiculous thing to say.
He said treif?
They said treif. That was the word they used, was treif. But I want to believe that most people who are knowledgeable in halakha, and I've said this many times before, even among Talmidei Chachamim who disagree, like Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai, or Talmidei Chachamim that are Ashkenazim or Sfaradim, when they disagree about something, they understand the halakha behind it. That's why you'll find Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai marrying each other's children, or sitting in each other's sukkah. Even though they believe those things were not kosher according to their opinion, their attitude of it's not kosher according to my opinion doesn't mean that what you're doing is invalid. It just means that according to my interpretation of halakha, I won't do that. Rabbi Yosef Chaim Zonefeld.
Very important.
You know, he was once in a situation where he was at a wedding of a Sephardic Talmid Chacham, and they were serving meat over there. It could be that the meat was from the backside of the animal. I don't remember exactly the details there. The Rabbi Yosef Chaim Zonefeld, how could you eat that meat? You're the chief Haredi rabbi of Jerusalem. He says, here, in this place, and by a Sephardic Talmid Chacham who eats this meat, if I sit here and don't eat from that meat, what will I be saying about him? How could I accuse another Talmid Chacham of feeding all these people not kosher food? That's a Talmid Chacham. Meaning in his own house he wouldn't eat that. But he knows in the other Talmid Chacham's house he would. That's the way all Talmid Chachamim used to be. Everybody, when you know halakha, so you know that someone who's observing it, someone who follows the Ramah, or someone who follows Maran, they're not following the forbidden opinion. When you see someone, I rule like the Ramah, how would you take the responsibility on your back to say that the Ramah is treif? I mean, you can spend a lot of time in Gehinnom after that. You don't have to worry about keeping any other mitzvot. If your attitude is that the Ramah is treif, go somewhere else to study Torah. It's not our attitude. We rule like Maran. That's what we do. We have to rule like somebody. Then we have. That doesn't mean that the Ramah is wrong. That doesn't mean he's treif. That doesn't mean his things are isul. It's unfortunately that it's not nuanced. That's the basis of understanding halakha has been lost by most people. And I feel that when people are not so educated and they're taught to observe halakha, and they're taught that the way they observe halakha is better than someone else who is educated, and that's what creates that monster. I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing, but I know that what you're doing is wrong. I used to tell people, I'm sure that your rabbi wouldn't speak like that. And I'm sure that your Talmid Chacham wouldn't talk like that. He would talk like a Talmid Chacham. And that's the attitude. Next
Isn't that why 24,000 students were killed?
That's exactly why 24,000 were killed.